much. On the criminal side, there's a right to counsel. So if you're facing a crime and you cannot afford to pay an attorney, then one is provided for you by the state free of charge. But there is no equivalent of that as a right on the civil side of things. So when Detroiters came together and raised our voice and demanded a change in the law because our city is hurting with this eviction crisis that's been going on far too long, that changed the game. So we passed the law in 2022 that mandates free legal representation for low income Detroiters.
I'm Janice Hazel, and you're watching Urban Interest. Here's what we're covering today. Clerk charged with manslaughter, U.S. Supreme Court rules in favor of Black Alabama residents, and killer of a Black mother is charged. Stay tuned. We will return after these messages.
Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your gardening supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasure.waynecounty.com to see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasure.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
Question. Do you know of John Henry Clark or Dr. Francis Cress Welsing? Have you ever heard of Mansa Musa? Or do you know the difference between Native Americans and First Americans? Or why the ancient Egyptians wore their hair in dreadlocks or clean shaven like the brothers do today? Or who were the Barbary pirates really? Hint, they didn't look like Johnny Depp. Or why Haiti has the lowest COVID rate and America the highest in the world. At UIN TV, we have the answer to these questions and much, much more because we are the keepers of our culture. Help us preserve this information and save it for your generations to come. Go to uintv.net, click on a channel to support, and subscribe today. Please do it now.
911, what's your emergency?
Oh my God, a child been shot!
Signal 13 involving a child, the medicine route.
It is time to put the guns down. We've had enough. My future.
My future.
My future. Our futures are in your hands.
Adults, put the guns down.
Wanna play? Sleep.
Walk to school.
Visit my friends. I want to feel safe.
It's time. Time to end gun violence.
Our lives depend on it.
Adults, this is not a request.
We demand that you protect us.
Put the guns down. We have hopes. Dreams.
Goals.
Don't let a split second of anger with someone else take away my entire lifetime.
Help us live. Help us thrive.
Help us build a better future.
In a safer Birmingham. Time's up.
After refusing to unlock a door to let customers escape a gun-wielding patron, the clerk was charged with manslaughter. He refused to unlock the door after the irate patron said he would kill the other customers if the door was not unlocked.
I buried my son yesterday.
Gregory Kelly is very emotional. His son, who shares the same name as him, was killed inside of the West McNichols gas station after the gas station clerk locked 37-year-old Kelly and two others inside when a gunman opened fire.
It was just heart-wrenching.
Kelly's funeral was just yesterday, the same day the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office announced charges against the gas station clerk identified as Al Hassan Ayash. Prosecutors accuse Ayash of being grossly negligent when he locked the customers inside even after the gunman threatened to shoot them if he didn't.
3 innocent bystanders who over the course of almost 8 minutes in an increasingly hostile environment were begging and pleading and screaming to get out of there.
Prosecutors admit Ayash did unlock the door, but only seconds before the shooting happened. Ayash's attorney argues he shouldn't be held criminally responsible for another person's actions.
I've never seen this before, but their theory is to hold him responsible, criminally responsible for the intentional crime that's committed by somebody else who he does not know.
Prosecutors accuse Ayash of locking customers inside the gas station on May 6 during a dispute with Samuel McCray after his car was declined for a purchase just under $4. Ayash is now being charged with involuntary manslaughter and could face up to 15 years in prison.
I think the charges are very appropriate.
But Kelly says more people need to be held accountable, including the person who helped McCray get away. He and his attorneys also say the practice of gas stations being allowed to lock the doors should be banned.
It's a bigger issue of the policy itself. The corporation, Marathon, should not have even allowed that policy to exist where you can lock someone in.
All too often, non-Black store owners operating in Black communities value merchandise over Black lives. Either clerks are shooting and killing patrons over alleged shoplifting, or are insensitive and uncaring about the lives of patrons as they begged to be let out of the store while the clerk remained safe behind bulletproof glass and a locked door in this situation. What does accountability look like? Corporate policies must be addressed that created this tragedy, and Black communities must decide if we want these businesses operating in our communities, profiting from us. Now, on June 8th, in a surprising 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of a gerrymandering lawsuit by Black Alabama residents.
Now to the Supreme Court, which just today ruled on a critical redistricting case in Alabama.
A 5-4 majority says the newly redrawn voting districts violate the historic Voting Rights Act. Two legally conservative justices, Brett Kavanaugh and Chief Justice John Roberts, agreed with Black citizens that their votes were being diluted.
In Alabama, the Black population is 1 out of every 4 people, but Black representation is just 1 out of the 7 seats in the U.S. House.
What the court said today is Section 2 of that landmark 1965 Voting Rights Act, it will still guard against at least the most egregious types of racial gerrymandering. What does that mean? It means you're drawing district lines to reduce voting power on the basis of race.
Alabama officials have to go back to the drawing board and come up with a second majority Black district. This case has been closely watched because of its impact on the U.S. House and on the Voting Rights Act. Well, THV 11 spent 3 hours today contacting legal experts to ask how this ruling could affect our state's redistricting lawsuit. None were ready to talk yet about this brand new decision, but we will continue working this story for you.
The Supreme Court ruled to uphold the provisions of the Voting Rights Act requiring the majority Black states' congressional maps represent its population. This move follows Alabama's Republican-led effort to eliminate such requirements, thereby further eroding the Voting Rights Act, which has already sustained 2 major blows within the last decade. This case will have far-reaching effects on voting rights nationwide. In Ocala, Florida, new details are coming to light in the case involving Susan Louise Lawrence, a white 58-year-old, and Jackie A.J. Owens, a Black 35-year-old mother of 4. A recently released arrest report claims the white woman charged for fatally shooting the Black mother through her door used racial slurs, including the N-word and "get away from my house, you Black slave," directed at the children playing in a field near her house before the deadly encounter. The children ran away but left their iPad, and when they went to Susan Lawrence's home to ask if she'd seen the device, the woman allegedly threw a roller skate at the children, hitting one child, prompting their mother to approach the neighbor. AJ, the mother of 4, was shot once in the chest when she knocked on the door of her 58-year-old white neighbor and died at the scene in front of one of her young sons.
The arrest follows a day of protest over the death of A.J. Owens, who was killed after being shot through her neighbor's door.
Yeah, the pair were allegedly in a dispute over a children's tablet as well. And Randy Hildreth is live outside the Marion County Jail this morning. Randy, the sheriff has spoken exclusively with Fox 35 about the arrest and the ongoing feud between these two neighbors.
Hey, good morning to you both. And one of the more difficult pieces of information that's come out of this investigation is that Owens's children were key witnesses in piecing this story together. I do want to break down the very latest that we got from the sheriff's office in the series of events that unfolded that day that ultimately led to Owens being shot. Now, one of the things that the sheriff's office has said is that Lawrence was angry at Owens's children who were playing in a field near her home. We're told that she started yelling at them, which was overheard by a neighbor. One witness says that Lawrence used racial slurs towards the children. Now, deputies confirmed she threw a roller skate at the children and one was hit. And they do say that an older sibling of Owens went to the home first to talk to Lawrence, and she swung an umbrella at them. And that's when they say Owens went to the home and knocked on the door. They say Lawrence fired one shot through the closed front door and it hit Owens in her chest with her 10-year-old standing next to her. I want to show viewers that mugshot again that we got overnight. Now, Lawrence claimed that the shooting was self-defense and that Owens tried to break down her door, but investigators say between witness statements and surveillance video, that was not true, and Florida's stand your ground law doesn't work in this case. In that exclusive interview with Sheriff Billy Woods, he acknowledged the growing calls for Lawrence's arrest, including protests yesterday, but he said investigators needed more time to go through everything.
We know the direction is going, and we can't give out information, and it's difficult because here's the truth. Did we want to make the arrest that night? Absolutely we did. There's no doubt about it. It's tragic when we see somebody that just shoots through a door and shoots another human being, really just because of a neighborhood squabble.
Now, Attorney Benjamin Crump, a civil rights attorney who is representing the family, released a statement. He is pushing for continued accountability as they continue to work through this investigation. He called in question the stand your ground law. He is expected to have a news conference at noon today with Owens's family. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, I'll have more reaction. Live this morning.
We have to wonder why it took 4 days for the 50-year-old white woman to be arrested as authorities worked to determine if her actions were warranted under Florida's Stand Your Ground law. The sheriff's office said later that her actions were not justifiable. The issue here is the normalization of the murder of Black people. It must end. Stand Your Ground laws shielding murderers must be dismantled. Attorney Ben Crump is representing the victim's family. Now, stay tuned, don't go anywhere. We'll return with insightful and incredible interviews after these messages.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times with a global pandemic now approaching its 3rd year. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. To see if you qualify, please visit. Call 313-388-9799 or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Diane Stewart. I'm a professor of religion and African American studies at Emory University, and I'm so delighted to be here at the Mother Shrine of the Black Madonna Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church in Detroit, Michigan, talking about my book, Black Women, Black Love, America's War on African American Marriage, and doing a book signing with this wonderful community. It has been an amazing visit, a historic visit for me as someone who's taught about the shrines of the Black Madonna, visited the shrine in Atlanta with my classes, but having my first opportunity to be here in person with this amazing church family. It has been such a wonderful experience of kinship, Black love, and togetherness. The Urban Information Network is the keepers of our culture.
Our first guest is Tonya Myers Phillips, the Director of Community Partnerships and Development at Sugar Law Center for Economic and Social Justice. Born and raised in Detroit, she's an attorney with a passion for social justice and improving the quality of life for all. In that capacity, she also serves as the lead for the Detroit Right to Counsel Coalition. Welcome, Tonya. Thank you for being with us today. Let's jump right into it. In-person eviction hearings have resumed in Detroit after a near 3-year hiatus due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Would you share what the Detroit Right to Counsel and Right to Counsel Coalition and ordinance is so that we can be up to date on the right language?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for inviting me today, Janice. It's a pleasure to speak with you and to the listeners out here in the community. So just a brief update on the Detroit Right to Counsel ordinance. Last year in May of 2022, the Detroit City Council unanimously passed this ordinance that provides full legal representation as a right to low-income Detroiters facing eviction. This is huge. This is a systems change that has kind of upended the status quo for as long as the system of law has existed, pretty much. On the criminal side, there's a right to counsel. So if you're facing a crime and you cannot afford to pay an attorney, then one is provided for you by the state free of charge. But there is no equivalent of that as a right on the civil side of things. So when Detroiters came together and raised our voice and demanded a change in the law because our city is hurting with this eviction crisis that's been going on far too long, that changed the game. So we passed the law in 2022 that mandates free legal representation for low-income Detroiters. So that's a right, a hard-fought right that we won in 2022. And we are in the process now of advocating for it to be fully funded so that there can be enough attorneys and enough community outreach workers so every Detroiter who's facing housing instability or security can have a plan, can have an advocate, can have legal representation. So that's a little bit of where we are in terms of what the law is right now. Now, over the past year or so, there has been a decline in the eviction rate, and that was largely because of the emergency relief coming in from the federal level. That's with the COVID Emergency Rental Assistance Act. And there has been an increase in legal representation. We're up to about 20% with those funds. So there has been, some improvement. However, with those emergency relief monies going away now, and the city failing to fully fund the ordinance, and the 36th District Court asking people to come down in person, or else you'll receive what we call in the legal community a default judgment, which basically means you automatically lose and get evicted in plain English terms. The combination of all those things at once and the eviction rate starting to rise again are signs that we need to be mindful of in our community. We need to get out ahead of this. We might be too late to say get out ahead of this. We need to stop it before we get back to epic crisis level once again in our community.
Absolutely. Well, let's just do some definitions so people understand. Low income in the city of Detroit at 200% or below the median. What does that mean? What is that for a family of 4 and for a family of 1, a household of 1? What are those income parameters?
That's roughly about $27,000, $28,000 for just a single household of 1. And for a family of 4, I want to say that's about in the 40,000 range, but I'll pull the federal poverty level chart real quickly and double check.
Okay. Yeah, just
So
wanted
it
to
is
have
our
a baseline,
yeah.
so people know what that means. Because a lot of times we throw around 200% of the median
Yes.
income, but no one really knows what does that mean for them and their actual income. And we know that based on the census tracts of the 2020 census, or even if you go back to the 2010 census, the average Detroiter is only making about $19,000 per year. That's the average Detroiter. Average household of 4 is about $31,000. And so that's the poverty level when you break it down. And I understand that last month the DRTC was protesting in front of the 36th District Court. What was the outcome? Did the judges actually hear you? Where do we stand? And what do Detroiters need to be requesting of the City Council? Do we need another amendment to the ordinance?
Sure, those are excellent questions. And just briefly, family size of 1, that's $27,180 a year. Family size of 4, $55,500 a year. So these are our most vulnerable community members that we certainly need to expand a social safety net and wrap our arms around our own. And yes, we were at the 36th District Court, protesting and advocating for a return to virtual hearings, or to at least allow Detroiters to have the option of virtual hearings like everybody else in the state of Michigan. So this is, a very unique carve out for the city of Detroit. But the Michigan Supreme Court and even the American Bar Association has best practices and recommendations to allow people the appropriate measures to easily access the judicial system. And right now, requiring individuals to make a decision. It's not like you can just run in and out when you go to court. It's not like that at all. You need to make a day of it, So having people make the decision of whether I go to court or whether I go to work. Do I go to court or do I take care of my children? Do I go to court or do I watch out for my health, since we still are in a pandemic? It's not as bad as it was, but it's still here, right? So forcing people to make those decisions of go downtown and pay for parking $10 or more.
$25. $25. I'm here to tell you.
Okay. Tell us.
I'm here to tell you $25. And if you get on a meter, you're only allowed 2 hours. And we know making your way through the court system is going to be more than 2 hours. So then you're going to get a ticket. And that is a real problem with Detroiters, particularly on the lower income spectrum, as I have read, because then if they amass a lot of tickets and can't pay them, they're subject to getting their car impounded, which spirals into not being able to get to work, because we know there aren't as many jobs in the city of Detroit as there are in the suburban areas, childcare, getting to pick up, there's just a lot of things. So what were some of the 8 demands that the DRTC had to the 36th District Court? Let's just run through some of those.
Yes. So we have 3 primary demands, and we have 8 reasons, approximately 8 reasons why we've asked the court to reconsider its decision, and it is completely in the discretion of the 36th District Court. But some of the reasons include, 1, top of the list, it is a burden. It is a hardship and burden on Detroiters. And I like how you even pointed out the cost of parking, because if you get that ticket, it's $40. If you can't pay it, if you're in a position to pay it right away, then it spirals to over $100. And you can not only lose your car, you can lose your license. So this can escalate and become a hardship very quickly. When we were down at the court observing and talking to people, so many people expressed their desire to continue on Zoom. That made their life easier. They didn't have to take off and miss a whole day of work and other obligations. So 1, it's a hardship on our people. 2, it already stretches the Detroit Right to Counsel ordinance implementation thin. And that's that wonderful law that we won, right? That says everybody gets full legal representation. Well, because our mayoral administration in the city of Detroit have not fully funded it, that means there are not enough attorneys and outreach workers to go around right now. So
Well, let's
right
just let's
now,
put a pin in that.
sure.
The American Rescue Plan Act funding
Yeah,
was there, and it's still there. It does
absolutely.
not
Absolutely.
disappear till next year, the 2024. Why
Correct.
is it that it's the floodgates haven't opened to fully fund getting attorneys available to these vulnerable populations?
There's no acceptable explanation for that, Janice. There really isn't. And I worked along with one of my colleagues at Wayne State Law School and wrote an extensive article about it, looking at the mechanisms of our strong mayor system, how we vote for a budget. And essentially, this baby is in the mayoral administration's hands, and this is the amount that was allocated. It is an increase. We initially started with only $6 million for 3 years. $2 million for an eviction crisis that's tipping up towards $30,000 a year, $2 million a year. That's nothing. So this year in the budget process, it was increased to $6 million a year, $18 million a year. But we've done our research. We've worked with one of the best firms in the nation. We have carefully analyzed the court data and legal services data, and we know that we need at least $27 million to get this initiative kicked off right and to invest in the lives of our community. We have a lot of money to invest in other endeavors, right? But if we don't have housing security in our city, we have nothing if we don't have housing security in our city. And another thing I just want to point out about that study is that this isn't money thrown out the window. The study demonstrates, just affirms our common sense of humanity, really, that there's a 3-to-1 return on investment for every dollar you invest in eviction prevention. 3-to-1, because you're retaining our citizens, our community, keeping us here. So I find no acceptable explanation for it. And in fact, Detroit was awarded the 5th largest allocation of these precious federal dollars, number 5 in the nation, over $800 million to rescue our community. And the city has spent less than 10% of it right now. So I don't have any justifiable explanation for why those investments in these critical services, such as funding legal representation for our vulnerable community members facing eviction, hasn't happened to scale yet.
I read with great interest that article that you referenced that was in the Journal of Affordable Housing and Community Development Law, which is a publication of the American Bar Association. And I applaud you and your colleague, Rebecca Robichard, for authoring that. It's titled Detroit's Eviction Crisis, How Power and American Rescue Plan Act Funds, or ARPA commonly known, could radically alter it. I encourage everyone to read it. It's great bedside reading material. And it really does bring about the questions as to why haven't these dollars been released? What can the average citizen do to help push the mayor to release those funds necessary?
Yes. Well, you can write, you can call, you can email at every opportunity, at every public meeting. Say that it's important. This is important to me as a Detroit resident. This is important to my community. This is important to our long-term stability. So you can do that all the time. If you want to get involved with the Detroit Right to Counsel Coalition and move with a group, that's taking strategic actions at various times, then you can certainly reach out to us via our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Detroit RTC. And you can also email us at rtcdetroit@gmail.com. And I'll be happy to share that information as well. But it's essentially, we have to raise our voice. For so long, our community has gotten tired sometimes. We've gotten tired. And one of the things that we write about in the article is how our community has been living in a state of suspended democracy for nearly a decade now. You know, we still require the state's permission to approve our annual budget every year. You know, so we have not emerged from the threat of state oversight, and I believe that's unfortunate. But that kind of suppression of our voice, you know, and dilution of our political power has made some people, I think, a little weary. But we need to shake it off, realize we are a strong people, that we deserve this, and that we need this. And every opportunity you have, say, this is a law. This is a law we fought for. This is a law we won. And in the history of our community and our existence in this country, you know, we have to make sure that laws that protect the best interests of our community are followed, right? So raise your
Absolutely.
voice about how important this is, individually, collectively, and for the future of our city, and for everybody to be able to participate in civic society fairly.
I want to read something from the press release that you sent out last month. The court has not adequately planned for and designated sufficient space to implement the right to counsel ordinance mandate, with each of the 6 landlord-tenant dockets averaging 60 cases daily. At least 600 people could be on one floor every morning. Let me say that again. At least 600 people could be on one floor every morning. This includes people with court cases, attorneys, court staff, security, the general public. People often bring others to court with them, and others interested in observing the court matters. So I want our residents to know that you really do need to talk to your council members and actually be in touch with the 36th District Court judges. You know, they are not sitting high and mighty off on their own. They were elected and are supposed to be accountable to us, the voters, because a room, I see the 36th District Court has provided a room. A room is one, right?
Yes.
A room with only 5 portable cubicles and a waiting area that should not seat more than 20 people to meet with an attorney and receive legal counsel. Now, I have to tell you, I have sued whenever I have felt the need to. And I'm very fortunate that I've been able to have my own counsel to do that. In the matters in which I've had to sue major corporations as well as government entities.
Yeah.
I feel so bad that an individual who does not have the economic means to bring their own, but is supposed to be represented by this ordinance, can't do it, and then might have to risk their health, possibly a child's health, if they have to bring their child with them, just to try to stay in their residence. Come on, people, we got to do better than this. We got the law passed. You have to contact your council members. You just go to detroit.mi.gov, right? detroitmi.gov. And you can find them. You can Google who is your council member for the city of Detroit. You can plug in your zip code and you'll find them. And then go down the list of who those 36th District Court judges are. Tonya, can you tell us their actual names right now so that we can get people queued up to write them, request a meeting with them, hold them accountable as public servants that were voted in, and let them know if they cannot do what's necessary for protecting the vulnerable people who have been so harmed. The city of Detroit, you know, I'm still looking for the money that I've been overassessed in that $600 million debacle. We've been so harmed that, you know, the next election is coming up and we can vote you out. That is the language that we need to be saying to these judges as well as council members. So what are some of the names of the judges that hear this docket?
Yes. Well, to the first question, who should you write to? This is an administrative decision. So that would be the Chief Judge, William McConaughey. So this is his ability to go forward with this, his ability to change it. So the individual judges, they, you know, don't too much have an official role in this. I'm sure they talk behind the scenes, but the one who is responsible for this and who can change this decision is Judge William McConaughey. And you can certainly write or certainly call or email the chief judge. And you can also join with the Detroit Right to Counsel Coalition as well. And a few of judges that you will probably run into if you're down there facing the case. You have Judge Sean Jacquet, you have Judge Kennedy, you have Judge Brew, you have Judge Sabree. So you have a number of judges there, but the administrative responsibilities lie with the chief judge, and he is responsible for implementing this, but at the same time, he can change it as well.
Absolutely. Well, we could go on and talk about this for many, many, many more hours, but we do have to wrap this up. Please tell us how people can reach you and the Right to Counsel again, website and phone number.
Yes. Well, thank you again so much. It's been such a pleasure to have this very important conversation. And I thank you for making space to inform our community members and empower our community members. So I really, really appreciate that. With the website, you can follow us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Detroit RTC. You can also email us at rtcdetroit@gmail.com. And you can also call at 313-993-4505. Now, that is the Sugar Law Center's phone number, but Sugar Law Center is acting as a sponsor or fiduciary of sort for our growing coalition. So you can call, and we will most definitely get the message, and look forward to linking arms with concerned citizens to make sure our rights are respected, our voices are heard, and that decisions are made with our best interests in mind. So please give us a call, email, or follow us on Facebook. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we've been talking with attorney Tonya Myers Phillips of Detroit Right to Counsel. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
For a history you won't forget and an experience you'll always remember, visit the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History with engaging educational programs, lectures, entertainment, and enlightening exhibits. You'll gain valuable insight and be motivated to inform others. The Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, located in the heart of Midtown Detroit. For more information or to schedule a tour, visit theright.org.
These my dads make it hurt.
Today, we bring you the first part of our global broadcast exclusive conversation.
The streets of Tahrir have once again been filled.
Key issues here at the United Nations Climate Change Conference remain unresolved.
Police are saying the protesters to move further and further away.
I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!
Be sure to click subscribe and check out our channels along with the award-winning Democracy Now!, all available 24/7 on demand. I'm Janice Hazel, and you're watching Urban Interests. We'll see you next time.